being a woman in economics and management. I mean, you've got way more to talk to me about this than I'm able to sort of intro it for you. But from what I could gather, it is a very male-dominated field.
Yeah.
You told me to research the idea of intersectional feminism, and I did the research. Okay.
Yeah.
I've tried to, so you can now judge me as like a little academic thing. I'll try and now like explain from what I could gather what it means. So it's the idea that there's a complex cumulative effect of different aspects of an individual's like social or political identity that then combines to form, and this is what I found quite interesting, it combines to form either like quite a unique form of discrimination, or it can combine to form quite a unique form of privilege, which I found quite interesting, because whilst it is trying to highlight that there are way more than just singular identities of people, the reason why they are discriminated, it's often more than just one thing, whether it's the colour of their skin or like the gender or their sexual orientation. It's usually like a culmination of those things, or how some of those things, in terms of how we've seen quite a renaissance in sort of careers and you know how they've started to have like quotas of the different types of diversity they've got to have, and how it can almost be a privilege and like a oddly like an advantage in some ways, small ways. It's getting there to be in these sort of minorities. Am I anywhere close to getting it right?
Definitely. When it comes to intersectional feminism, it's more based on the fact that when feminism came in and like basically coined a term, it was more to do with white females being as privileged as white males. And then over time it's like realised, oh wait, but there's another layer to that. You can't like it was basically saying if you're a black female, you can't be saying that you're being like there's prejudice against you just because you're female and you're black. You can only have one. Like people, like it's just basically the idea that accepting that there are just so many layers to it. And yes, definitely in banking. So these things with the quotas, there's so many things going on about like, oh, you're just there for the quota. Like, oh, you don't actually have the skills. But anyway, that's another story. But it's more that, especially minorities in finance and banking, when you walk into a boardroom of the majority of the FTSE 100 companies, there are so many stats on this, just white males. There's no diversity in there, and that's why you need change at the top often to then infiltrate the changes at the bottom. And it's just a lot to do with the fact that I'm hoping that it's like a generational thing as well. Like as our younger generations work up, people will slowly be advocating for more diversity. And there are already things like SEO and Bright Network who try to help people from minority ethnic backgrounds get into these higher paid jobs. And then hopefully it can just start a cycle, and it can just, it's just, yeah, especially there are so many things in banking, like especially trading. So I mentioned before when I talked about the intersectional feminism that once when I worked with a company, I was helping them with their marketing and their YouTube channels, and I was looking at their statistics, and it was 99.9% male. And it just really infuriated me because I was like, wow, you really need to work on that. Like you need to change that, because if you are trying to teach and encourage and inspire the next generation of traders, you don't want them all to be male and from England. You want the diversity. You want females from all different races. You want all sexualities. The diversity is just really, really important. But what frustrated me was that they almost were like, no, like it's better that we just keep it with the people who, you know, really want to do it. And it's just like, it's because the minorities don't know that they can do it. They're not told you can do it from a young age, that they aren't. So it's quite a tricky situation, and especially in finance as well. As a woman, there are so many setbacks, but what a lot of banks are now doing is things. So I've gone to women in leadership events. I've done like consultancy companies like PwC do women in finance, and you can do like a scheme to try and help you onboard you onto the graduate program or an internship. So more companies are trying to do it because they have seen the statistics that when you have a female in leadership, that it's it helps the company because you have more diverse thinking. As soon as you can tackle problems a lot better because you're not just thinking in one way. You need to be more open-minded. But it's definitely, I know I get quite passionate about it, and I try I'm also not the best at explaining how I feel, but it's just there's just so many layers to it. And one of the books that I read recently was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race.
To white people about races. Yeah. I've been recommended that book many times across this.
It's got a very interesting name. She explains it later on in the book, but I didn't realise she's got a whole chapter on it, on intersectional feminism, and basically her views. Like when she went to this feminist group, they were like, oh, you don't actually have like problems. It's just like you don't really deserve like the privilege because you're not actually like us. So it's just like another layer. It's just basically it's the kind of thing where you can't just say, oh, I'm not racist. You've got to be like pro, and you've got to be anti-racist. Like completely, you have to elevate the voices of people who aren't getting heard. So I understand that I'm half Chinese and half English. I have some white in me. Yeah. So compared to someone who's fully Chinese, often granted my name's Mei-Ying Chow, the amount of times that people have seen my name, like it happens so often, and it's really horrible because as soon as they hear me speak, the attitude changes towards me completely when I tell them that I'm from Brighton or from London, and that shouldn't be the case. It's so frustrating because it's just like, that's just blatantly racist. You can't just think that because of my name I don't understand something, and then when you realise, oh, she must be from the UK, she's fine. There's so much to it. It's just, a whole can of worms with this Black Lives Matter movement that it's like hundreds and thousands of years of like repressed people and like emotions and just things that haven't been able to come out are slowly being spoken about. And I mean, there have been so many movements through history, but there's still so much further that we've got to go. But sorry.
One of the most fascinating.
I just did like a whole spiel. I'm so sorry.
I mean, this is obviously you're not a voice for like all communities, and that's not what I'm trying to get at. But what do you think you need to see that needs to change to maybe improve it?
Definitely in banking, or just in the world.
Yeah, in what you're trying to go and to do.
I think just seeing I know that in lots of companies, so I did an internship at Deloitte, and they were saying that over 50% now of their partners are female. And when I heard that, I was like, that's brilliant, But then they showed this race video. We had they showed a 5-minute video on diversity, and there's not one Asian, there was not one Oriental person in it, and they showed all these other, and I get the point that they're getting at, but it was a very long video. They could have put someone in, and also half the people on that call were like Asian, so it just felt like they kind of missed the target. But I know that they work a lot on that, especially with females. So I was speaking with someone who was saying that even while she was on maternity leave, she was actually promoted, which is like nice to hear, that you're not just going to be left aside. But I would say it definitely starts with the higher. We just need people in power, people that have power, to basically say, look, there needs to be a bit of a shift around. Maybe let's bounce it out a bit, and let's give some people some opportunities that they've never been given before, like that kind of thing.